How do you get the most value out of your New Zealand holiday time? In this video, I'll show you how to include the amazing Waitomo Glowworm Caves into your Auckland to Rotorua drive. With a bit of planning, this is so easy and you will save so much time. My name is Michael, I'm a New Zealand travel designer. Let's get started. So before we have a look at the recommended driving route through Waitomo Caves, here is the direct route from Auckland to Rotorua. As you can see, the driving distance is around about 230 kilometers or nearly 3 hours. As usually with Google Maps, you need to calculate 10 to 15% driving time. So my suggestion is around about 3.5 hours. So if you depart Auckland around about 9 o'clock in the morning, you expecting to arrive in Rotorua around midday. If you are on a very tight time budget for Rotorua and only have one night, this might work. But otherwise, if you're planning on 2 nights for Rotorua, I'll show you now a very interesting route through the Waitomo Cave area. So on this map, you see the slight detour. So you're still heading south, you're going through Hamilton, you head into Waitomo Caves and then cross into the center of the North Island to Rotorua. This route is about 100 kilometers or 42 miles longer, so you have an additional hour, but doing this you save a lot of time in respect of going to the Waitomo Caves separately, and you make the most out of your day. So there's a couple of stops I want to talk about in this video, but first of all, maybe a handy hit. To make the most out of this day, you may want to start a little earlier in Auckland, like 8 o'clock, and to do so, my recommendation would be to pick up your rental car the day before in the afternoon, the late afternoon. Often, because rental cars are calculated on 24-hour terms, this means there's no additional charge, depending obviously what time you drop it off, but most people would drop it off in the midday anyway. So this is one option for you to consider, so picking up the rental car in the afternoon the day prior to departure. So let's go through the map in more detail. Again, you heading south on SH1, State Highway 1 towards Hamilton, and there are a couple of places that are really interesting, and I would encourage you to stop there. So the first place are the Hamilton Gardens. So the Hamilton Gardens enclose 18 different garden styles, from an ancient Egyptian garden to an Italian Renaissance garden. So it's a really cool place, even if you're not into gardening yourself, but this is a beautiful place to stop over on your way towards Waitomo. Another really cool place is the Zealong tea estate. It's the only New Zealand tea grower owned by a New Zealand company. They also have a tea cafe, they have a restaurant, and they're also offering guided tours. All of that will need to be pre-booked. So please check the links to these attractions in the description box below. Also a reminder, if you want to make the most out of that day, starting at 8 o'clock is a really good idea. Now there are some more interesting suggestions for you to come. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button below to stay connected with more helpful New Zealand travel itineraries. Also, you can download my free New Zealand travel planning sheet in the description box below. So after Hamilton, you heading further south on SH39 here. It's a lovely drive through typical New Zealand landscape, and you're heading into Otorohanga. Otorohanga is a classic New Zealand small township. It's located in the Waikato region, which is famous for the dairy industry, but it's also famous for his kiwi house. So let's have a look at that. The iconic New Zealand kiwi bird is rarely seen in the wild, so visiting a kiwi house, a kiwi night house, is a really good opportunity. So beside the kia bird, there's a number of other New Zealand native birds you are able to meet at Otorohanga. We're talking about the kaka, the parakeet, the falcon, so it's a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about the New Zealand bird life. So in any case, I would recommend to have lunch in Otorohanga before continue to the nearby Waitomo Cave village. If you start traveling from Auckland around about 8 o'clock in the morning, you would arrive around about 12:30 with all the stops mentioned before. So Waitomo is a small village, but there's lots to do. So in this video we want to focus on the caving tours. So the first caving tour I would recommend is the 𝗀𝗏𝗃𝗃 cave tour. So the 𝗀𝗏𝗃𝗃 cave is a dry cave. That means you can simply just walk through with a guide. The tour takes around about 2 hours. It starts every 30 minutes, so it's perfect if you arrive like 12:30 or 1 o'clock. You can go on one of these tours and you would be finished by 3 o'clock. If you still have a bit of time, here's a really cool bushwalk nearby, so you can actually drive with your car to a car park here near the 𝗀𝗏𝗃𝗃 bushwalk and just go for a stroll through that magnificent limestone country. So the 𝗀𝗏𝗃𝗃 bushwalk. The next operator, it's called Waitomo Adventures. This one is a upstyling trip mainly. They do a couple of trips, either 4 hours or 7 hours, going deep into the cave. So if you want to do that upstyling trip, you would need to stay in Waitomo, in the Waitomo Otorohanga area. They also have a black water rafting trip, which usually takes about 3.5 hours. The next underground caving tour is with the legendary Black Water Rafting Company. As the Waitomo Adventure Tour, this is a wet caving tour. That means you get a wetsuit on, you get a helmet, you get a rubber ring, and then you go deep into the caving system, which there's a river running through it, and you're more or less following the river. You would walk in the river, you would swim in the river, and it's really one of these classic, iconic New Zealand tours you might want to do if you have a bit of sense of adventure. I highly recommend. Yet another operator is the Spellbound Glowworm and Cave Tour. This is a family operation here, smaller scale. It starts from the Waitomo village, and as you can see, marvelous, the glowworms on the top of the ceiling. Again, this is a dry cave. You can actually walk through the caving system with a guide, as well as you've seen before, you go through with a boat. Here you can see those glowworms hanging down the roofs. The whole area, the whole Waitomo region, is covered with thousands of underground caving systems. They're everywhere. It's limestone. On top you have either paddocks or you have native New Zealand bush. Yet another option is the Waitomo Glowworm Cave. This cave is more targeted for the coach tourists, so there's a larger number of visitors going through. They really go through with a little boat ride. This caving tour is the most famous one, but yeah, you need to keep in mind this is more for larger groups. So my recommendation would be to go for one of the smaller operators like 𝗀𝗏𝗃𝗃 or the Waitomo Adventures going the black water rafting. I will put links to all of these operators in the description box below, so you can actually check out those options in more detail. So after Waitomo, you make your way towards the central part of the North Islands, towards Rotorua. There's a couple of road options. Here is the most direct one, but here is a second option, which is actually my preference. You heading down through 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗃, and then you going through the rolling green hills. That's really North Island heartland, through little villages and tiny little places, and you would arrive from the southern end into Rotorua. In Rotorua, most people would stay in the central part of the town. It's quite a larger kind of village, city, I should say. You could also stay here a little bit outside at 𝗪𝗪𝗃 Point, simply to avoid the sulfur smells, and they get once in a while, they get a little bit strong because there's a lot of thermal and activity with geysers and hot steam coming out of the ground. I will do a dedicated video on Rotorua and the region because it would be far too much to go into all of the details here. So if you want to head back to Auckland to either finish your North Island trip, or if you want to go down to the South Island, you could either do this by traveling back to Auckland, return your rental car. This way you have better rental car rates and the flight options into the South Island are more plentisome. On the other side, you could also fly directly from Rotorua down to the South Island, like you could go to Christchurch or even down to Queenstown and connect the North and South Island. There is a direct flight from Rotorua to Christchurch, so keep that in mind. So if you're interested in the South Island, I will put a link to my South Island New Zealand trip in 10 days up here, and you also can find all the other links in the description box below. As you can see, with a bit of planning, you can make more out of your existing holiday time in New Zealand. I always recommend the route between Auckland and Rotorua via Waitomo Caves to my traveling guests. Another key point is to stay 2 nights at each location as much as possible. This way you can explore each region in 1 full day. Check out my other New Zealand travel planning videos in the playlist above here or in the description box below. Also download my free New Zealand travel planning sheet, which will help you greatly when setting up your New Zealand holiday. See you in the next video.